Make its way just to the east of Topeka, Kansas. Very heavy rain. It is just to the east of Osage and then moving towards Elk, Kansas as well. And we have a tight rotation right there. Look at that tight rotation there. Red means your winds are going away from the radar, and then the green-blue means it's coming towards. And so if you put a pencil in between your hand and do towards, away, then therefore you are going to see that rotation. All right, this is a correlation coefficient. Doesn't look like there's any debris. We don't see any sort of debris ball popping up on this, but that is a very, very tight rotation. So if you're in Valley Brook, you need to seek shelter. If you're in Elk, you need to seek shelter. If you know anyone doing this drive east of Osage on 56, please call them and let them know severe weather is headed in their direction. It looks like it'll get to Valley Brook at 6:02, Fairfax at 6:10, Four Corners here into Elk 6:16 to 6:21. So you want to make sure that you are in the lowest level of your home, most interior section of your home, away from the windows, because this is going to come on. It's going to come on very quick as well. This also could have hail that is at least 3/4 of an inch in diameter, if not bigger. A lot of lightning. So this might have woken you up and you just tuned into the Weather Channel. Heavy rain with this too, so you might not be able to see it. Now let's zoom out and show you the other severe weather. This is our low pressure, at least at the surface, moving around counterclockwise. On the east side of it, it is rain, it is storms, everything moving northbound. We move north here into Nebraska, and Colfax, Dodge, Saunders counties, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning. So again, it's those winds gusting near 60 miles an hour, frequent lightning, and you can't rule out hail with this because our hail parameters in purple show that it's favorable for some of these storms to crank out the hail. A little bit more favorable where you see the purple shading on the map, but still we could see very large hail today, again up to 2 inches, which is lime size or egg size maybe. If you're having breakfast this morning, think of your egg being solid ice. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, Topeka seeing a lot of lightning. And all these storms, by the way, heading right towards Topeka. They'll continue to come into places like Omaha as well. And we have tornadic parameters too, and the shear is actually going to get stronger as we head into the afternoon hours because we have the energy from that jet cutting across, and then we're going to have the low-level jet coming in as well. So you're going to see the winds at different levels coming from different directions, and that's what gives us the spin in the atmosphere. So 2 tornado watches. This means conditions are favorable for the development of tornadoes, and then we have the tornado warning within this watch, and that means it's imminent or it's occurring. This is until 9, and our northern one, I believe, is until 8 o'clock. And we do have the threat for storms to get worse as we head into the afternoon hours. We have a 5 on our Torcon. That means that we could see a few tornadoes for us here. And then again, those hail parameters that I was mentioning too, with these big, potentially supercells rotating thunderstorms coming in and cranking out the damaging winds. Doesn't just have to be a tornado threat. It could be a damaging wind threat. The upper level energy from this is bringing snow into Colorado, but this also gives us some lift, not only underneath it, but ahead of it. So this aids in the development of those stronger storms and that cooler air, which gives us instability because cold air wants to sink, warm air wants to rise. And there you go. There is the snow into Colorado. Not to mention, look at these isobars, the tightly packed white lines. Those are lines of equal pressure, very windy, 60, 70 mile an hour gusts, and those will be widespread. Back to the severe weather. You always want to look here in the warm sector. Obviously, you can get it outside the warm sector. You can get it along the warm front, but the warm sector is a good place like today to start looking for that severe weather. And these are just your large-scale synoptic winds, not even your thunderstorm winds. So we're going to get large-scale winds and then stronger damaging winds within these thunderstorms. As I mentioned this afternoon, we have those low-level winds, that low-level jet that's going to be streaming in, and then not only the mid-levels, but as you go up into the jet stream level coming across, and that's going to cause stronger thunderstorms this afternoon. So we'll play it out for you as we go through the day today. The biggest threat for that severe weather, look at our tornado parameters, very favorable, Missouri, Iowa, and that does jump over into Illinois as well. Chicago, you'll get in on some of these showers and thunderstorms, and as this whole thing moves Wednesday into the Ohio River Valley, we'll still see the threat for storms, Jordan. It just won't be as intense.
Well, we know we're going to get storms here as well in St. Louis, although we've been warm, a bit sultry, cloud covers here. And of course, this is where I'm standing thanks to our virtual view technology. I am thankful I get to hang out with you folks in St. Louis, at least virtually. As the rain comes in, though, we're going to want to make sure we know where to go to stay safe. This afternoon, the commute later today, we could be looking at large hail, gusty winds, maybe a spin up or two, as Steph was mentioning. All of those options are on the table. Some of the wind gusts for us, 35 miles an hour or so. I want you to be on the lookout for just like kind of debris or anything like that. So right now we've got nothing but cloud cover, so it's the waiting game for us. It's not necessarily the day where you want to take the bike to work if you have to work till tonight. And I say that because tonight is when or later on this afternoon is when we're going to be looking at some of the biggest storms. I don't want you out in a bicycle trying to race home before the big hail comes, because we've got that chance to maybe see some hail as well. So this is 4 o'clock. If you work till noon, taking the bike is fine. But notice what happens around 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. We're going to see this rush hour probably coming to a little bit of a halt because of the precip coming down, and that line will track east across the city throughout the evening commute and dinner time. Now, this morning, a lot of our action's been in eastern Nebraska. We've been talking about what's been happening in parts of Iowa, storms stretching up the Sioux, and really intense rainfall rates with obviously severe thunderstorm warnings and unfortunately tornado warnings. The area of low pressure put several rounds into Norfolk, Nebraska. I think you could maybe see some of it skirting along I-80 as well, but most of this really impacting this I-90 corridor. And of course, that unfortunately means we'll see storms for several rounds today and maybe for some of you going into tonight. Best hail threat states to the east. Would not be surprised, though, if we saw hail going up into Sioux Falls. We've got the possibility of seeing that, especially this morning. But the biggest hail threat's going to be this afternoon when it comes through Des Moines and areas east along I-80. Waterloo, I'm talking to you. This is also where we've got our highest Torcon value of 5 today, where additional tornadoes could spawn right here in this part of the country. So throughout the morning, the wall of water we've been tracking, all of that comes through, makes it pretty tough for us through lunchtime. Storms blaring off, yes. Look at Waterloo at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and then these rogue cells coming back in as we head into your afternoon and evening time frame, which ultimately could cause another line of storms, kind of a 1, 2, 3 punch for folks into Waterloo going into tonight as that storm shifts east. And unfortunately, Kelly, we know that these storms could survive through overnight and work its way eastward from here.
Yeah, and it will affect your Wednesday morning commute or perhaps your afternoon and evening commute. We do have the red on the map yet again for Wednesday, stretching from the eastern Great Lakes all the way down through the Tennessee Valley, but especially where you see the brighter red on the map, Indianapolis to Columbus, even up towards Detroit. This is where the parameters are a little bit higher for us to get that severe weather, including a tornado threat. On our Torcon scale, it's a 3 out of 10, and then you've got a 2 down towards Evansville and areas around Cincinnati and Columbus. So a few isolated tornadoes will be possible tomorrow. We'll have that heating that will start up tomorrow morning as soon as the sun comes up, and that cold front moving east, interacting with that warm, moist, buoyant air, and that will lead to these showers and storms developing anywhere from Grand Rapids in Michigan all the way down through western Ohio and into Kentucky as well. Those deeper shades of orange showing us the greater instability. You've got the strong low-level winds, upper wind support as well, leading to a damaging wind threat. So even if you don't get rotation and a tornado, these straight line winds could also knock down some trees and power lines as well. We see the clock starting at 7 o'clock in the morning with the storms around Lexington, Kentucky, stretching down towards Middle Tennessee as well. They will head eastward, where, by the way, yesterday we had several reports of large hail, including in Loudoun County, Virginia, golf ball size hail yesterday afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that first batch, but look what happens behind it. As we get that heating, we'll see some of these more significant cells showing up, moving past Detroit, moving towards Cleveland as we head towards dinner time, and we'll see that storm line move through western Pennsylvania, where, by the way, there could be a flood threat as well because our ground is already saturated. We had that flash flood emergency in the Pittsburgh area just late last week. So anywhere you see the green on this map, from tomorrow into Thursday morning, you could have some flash flood warnings, and even some creeks and streams will be rising. I know the Ohio River was in moderate flood stage over the weekend. So Detroit, here come the storms as we head through late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. There they go, 4 a.m. There's your wake-up call, right? Your alarm clock going off with the storms, and then we get another line that looks even more fierce by later in the afternoon, just as the kids are stepping off the bus. But then we're all clear as we head towards early Thursday morning, Steph.
Well, let's talk about the evolution of this system throughout the northern tier and what we are going to be dealing with. And we do have heavy rain along the border of Minnesota, South Dakota, strong thunderstorms as we were talking about Kansas up towards Nebraska, even a flash flood warning that has now popped on the scene for us. us. And here's that cell, and it did have a very tight rotation associated with this, and that's why we want everyone to take this very seriously. If you're in Carbondale, Elk, Overlook, even if you live in between Topeka and Lawrence, you want to make sure that you are paying very good attention to this, because heading off to the north at 40 miles an hour along I-70, we could see some issues here. That's where you have your rotation. The red and the greenish blue, right where they're touching, that is that strong rotation, and it is going off to the north here, a little northeast at around 40 miles an hour. So do watch out. If you're in Fairfax, it'll be to you at just about 11 after in a couple minutes. Elk 6:20, and then Swissvale around 6:24. Osage City, you are out of it. You still could see some stronger thunderstorms, but this rotation that is spotted by the radar could be on the ground at any moment, making it a tornado versus just, you know, a rotating thunderstorm, perhaps a supercell thunderstorm. And right now, here's a look at the let's switch over the correlation coefficient, get my mind right here. And we're looking for a dropout there in our pixels, and we don't really see one. So hopefully this is just rotation that's happening in the atmosphere, and it has not made its way to the ground. But there's a lot of heavy rain, a lot of lightning associated with this. And there's that new flash flood warning. You can barely see it, but it's right there because storms are coming in and out of the situation. Not to mention, look at our tightly packed isobars. These are lines of equal pressure, and the closer they are together, the breezier it is. And that's what we have. 30, 40 mile an hour winds. Some of us have high wind warnings back into the plains where we could gust 60, 70 miles an hour. Very intense weather coming in. It goes through the upper Midwest, on into the Great Lakes, and then this eventually gets into the Northeast for us as we head towards the end of the week. There is a possibility of flooding. I don't think it's going to be widespread. I think it'll be very localized flooding. But, Jordan, we need this 1 to 2 inches of rain, because right in this vicinity is where we do have pretty bad drought.
Yes, we do, which is great to see the rain falling there. We are also going to see the temperatures falling, and we're talking about a big tumble for so many of us. I want to highlight Kansas City for a second, because we've been warm, we've been nice. Some of us feel like it's summer-like, busting out the AC. Today will be in the 80s. Obviously, we've got the storm coverage, which isn't great. But notice as we, today's in the 70s, yesterday's in the 80s. But notice where we go as we head into your Thursday. We drop into the 50s. So some of us are going to experience quite a bit of a temperature tumble. We're talking 20 and 30 degrees for many locations. We've got 70s and 80s all the way up along this I-80 corridor. Look at Des Moines today. You've got the storms, which will keep you in the 70s, but out ahead of it in Columbus, we've got 80s expected, 81 for us. Raleigh will be in the 80s as well. Reminder, keep an eye on what's in your vehicles, right? This is the time of year where the gummies you gave your kids yesterday begin to melt in the afternoon because it's so dang hot and those cars get ridiculously steamy. Unfortunately, we don't even need to see really hot temperatures for those vehicles to warm up. Chicago today at 76, but that vehicle in just 30 minutes will be 110. So be mindful. Look in the back. Make sure no one's back there. Do not leave anybody back there. Okay, so tomorrow we continue the heat trend. We're going to notice a few things changing for this northern tier above where it says temperatures. Tomorrow, that cool air will drop down into the plains and, in fact, actually down into the south as we head in towards the late week. So that area of low pressure helping kind of keep our flow a little bit more zonal from the jet stream perspective west to east. But underneath that, you've got the cold air sinking at the surface, which ultimately drops our temperatures. It's going to take some time to do so, but it's on the way. You've got 7 million below average temp-wise tomorrow. Notice what happens on Friday. More and more of you see those temperatures tumble, Stephanie. In fact, as we head into Saturday and Sunday, we start to feel some of that temperature coolness in the south.
Yeah, that is. Let's have a look out the door back at that severe weather that we are dealing with. And we have had this tornado warning that we've been watching here for quite a bit because there is a tight rotation associated with this. It's making its way to the north. So if you live in between Topeka and Lawrence, this is coming towards you. Elk, this is also headed in your direction. So you want to get to the lowest level of your home and seek shelter as that rotation. It's still there. And it is going to be into places like Fairfax at 6:15, Elk 6:24, Swissvale, you will see it at 6:28. And let's see.
A tornado watch is in effect. Currently in our area, 69 degrees with rainy conditions. Today, windy with morning thunderstorms. High 79. Rainfall near an inch. Winds could occasionally gust over 40 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy and windy. Low 57. Higher wind gusts possible. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Well, the verdict is in on the top 10 busiest airports in the world over the past year, and Atlanta takes top spot once again. Hartsfield-Jackson International posted a 12% increase in passenger traffic in 2023. That's according to a new report released by Airports Council International. 104 million passengers traveled through the airport last year. That's an increase of over 10 million people since 2022. The Georgia hub also stands well clear of the second-placed airport, which is Dubai International, which handled about 17 million less passengers. One of the factors is that 80% of the U.S. population lives within a 2-hour flight of Atlanta, making it a major hub for connections across the country. And today looks like a pretty good flying day overall for the ATL. Maybe later on tonight we get a few showers, but otherwise, as we scan the country, no delays out there quite yet, although we do have a mess in the middle. Showers, thunderstorms, some of them turning severe already at this early hour. And even without the severe weather, we've got a lot of wind energy leading to some turbulence reports. Now we're getting a pilot reporting back about some pretty severe turbulence over here in the heart of Missouri, and also some turbulence out there in northern Minnesota. So prepare for a bumpy flight at that cruising altitude, 30,000 feet as we go through the afternoon. This is 4 o'clock. The darker blues and purples indicating some of the stronger
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
Also across northern Wisconsin, it is going to be a very wound up system, and that will result in a lot of turbulence. Showers, thunderstorms, they could cause some delays for us. The Twin Cities down to Kansas City. Chicago, maybe the wind that causes a delay program until we actually get the storms coming through later on this evening. And at that time, we could actually see a ground stop depending on where the storm set up. Huge area in the red zone for today. This is your chance for severe weather, especially in that darker red zone, including Des Moines. Cloudy now, but we do have a 5 on our tornado condition index, so kind of right in the middle of the scale. Here's a look at Omaha. You see this line that's kind of congealing out there in the central part of Nebraska. That's going to be moving on through. We've already had some pretty strong winds in Strang, Nebraska, 62-mile-per-hour wind. And look at this tornado report in Eureka. This is in Kansas. Tornado spotted 2 miles southeast of Eureka, and these storms are moving at about 30 to 35 miles an hour. We still have this tornado warning just on the east side of Topeka, seeing some rotation within this cell right here. So seek shelter as low as you can go in your home or business. We've got Douglas, Osage in that tornado warning. And as we look for rotation, it looks to be right over the Elk area. You see the green, that's the wind going toward the radar site. Red, of course, going away. So we've circled it for you right there. Again, this actual storm is moving off toward the north and east at about 35 miles an hour. So don't wait to see it. You're probably hearing the lightning already. That's your first indication of something bad coming, right? Some thunderstorms. So if you are in Swissvale, Big Springs, even Williamstown by about 6:50, there could be a tornado touching down anywhere in this red zone right here. So seek shelter as soon as you can, away from the windows and away from the exterior walls. We do have conditions that are favorable for tornadoes early in the day, and then of course later on tonight we'll have to watch out.
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
The eastern part of Kansas as well. So Kansas City to St. Louis, the I-70 corridor, but especially Jordan, the I-35 corridor as we head into the Hawkeye State over toward the Quad Cities, where we could see some really nasty storms later this evening.
Well, we know the rain is adding up in the rain gauge department. In fact, let's check some rain gauges. Today, checking in on Shreveport, Louisiana. Now, on the left, you're going to see where we typically should be for the entire month of April. Remember, we're mid-month. And we technically see 5.19 inches for the entire month. But we are already well above that, more than 3 inches above that, because we're at 8.84. So we've been seeing a lot of rain in this part of the country, much of the south, from Texas all the way into Mississippi, and of course Florida, Georgia, seeing some record rainfall just last week. In fact, some of us have experienced our highest daily April rainfall record of all time. I'm talking about a small city in South Georgia. But let's take a look at these spots. Jackson, Mississippi, month to date, 7.4 inches. Where should you be? 5.84 for the entire month. We're only midway and we still have more rain on the way. Tallahassee is one that stands out. You're more than double what you typically pick up right now. And of course, that was all that rain we saw in last week's precipitation event. Now, we're going to be looking at some big heavy rain hanging out here from, Arkansas back through much of Texas. And both the European and the GFS says, hey, I think this is where we could see several inches. In fact, the GFS puts a pocket here east of San Antonio where we could be looking at maybe more than 5 inches of rain Thursday through Monday. So a soggy weekend to say the least. I don't think every spot will be a washout for the entire weekend, unless you're in Texas. Places like Huntsville and Birmingham and Atlanta, you got a chance for rain too, but your weekend won't be ruined. Now, by Thursday, we could be looking at severe storms.
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
And the boundary sets up shop and keeps the rain game alive.
A warning has been issued for our area.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Breaking now. We're obviously keeping an eye on some big storms this morning in the plains. We've been watching this, tornado warnings blossom from Nebraska and into Kansas, and we've got one right now heading just east of Topeka. This thing has been showing strong signs of an actual tornado, strong signs of a couplet of rotation moving towards I-70. Douglas, Osage, Shawnee counties. This was right over the little town of Elk on the bottom part of the screen there, and now you could actually see that tight rotation yet again still showing up very prominent here as it's racing north around 30 to 35 miles per hour. So I'm really concerned about this section of I-70, as you can imagine, between Topeka and Lawrence. If you're watching us this morning in this area and you know anybody that drives that corridor, that I-70 corridor, maybe give them a call and say, hey, if you could wait a little bit. Notice the timing here on the left side of the screen. This will eventually move north of the interstate, but I hate to have someone driving on there when this storm system decides to move over if it still has that tight rotation. So the tornado warning does move north of I-70, but the cell itself is still on the south side. We go to correlation coefficient. Was there anything there, Jimbo? Gosh, that couplet is so tight. And you can kind of see, I don't know if we're going to put it into motion. Is that the debris we're looking at outside of the system itself? Okay, so maybe the circle should go here. Even though the circle is showing there, as we kind of show you tog back and forth between the two modes. Basically what that other mode was showing you is, non-meteorological,
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
Like a rain droplet or even a hailstone. This would be maybe like a tree limb or shavings from a tree kind of working their way through. Unfortunately, it could be a building, could be anything like that. So either way you look at it, we've got something there that is very prominent and is racing north. Plenty of lightning here. Of course, this will continue to move northward around 35 miles per hour. Thankfully, we are going to be looking at the cell moving east of Topeka, but the problem is anyone waking up in Topeka or even Lawrenceville, it's right in between you as it's working its way into that direction. So we'll keep you posted as long as this thing is working its way into that direction. The latest timing on this is going to put it in stall at 6:40. What is that, in about 10 minutes or so? What time is it right now? 7:30 Eastern, so 6:30 Central. Big Springs at 6:43. Perry at 6:51. Of course, those aren't listed here, but you can see Stoll and Lecompton here, which is on the right side of where that cell is currently right now. So lots of rain out ahead of it, lots of lightning, of course, waiting for that real, big light to pop up over the horizon. You can see Topeka, the camera below us, so we do have some visibility here, thankfully. Hopefully we can see that. Meanwhile, Wichita is kind of getting a break. You had that line of action that worked its way now to your east. The area of low pressure is still hanging out in Nebraska, so I still anticipate plenty of rain and thunderstorms on the eastern side of the state. Flash flood warning here just north and west of Omaha, and all that purple color here is going to give you an idea of where we could see the best chances for hail and unfortunately damaging hail. This is also the zone where we're right in tune to seeing tornado potential this morning. So it's favorable. This is kind of heading towards the Kansas
A tornado
City area.
warning
Kansas
has been
City's
issued
waking up
for
with some
our
rain and
area.
storms, but the most intense of it is going to be working its way into your backyard probably within the next hour or two. We've got the tornado watch until 9 o'clock Central Time. Likely going to see the tornado watch expand and move throughout the day today, especially for places like Des Moines, Kirksville, even the western central portions of Illinois. You all can get into that, intense storm coverage by about midday through the afternoon, where our Torcon value is 5. I know the hail footprint kind of shows you where it's circled, but look at how big it is for some of the other surrounding areas that have a chance to see some hail or even some large hail. So that area of low pressure is currently kind of getting its way out of the Rockies and tracking east. And Kelly, I'm going to leave it with you, because by the time this thing works its way through Missouri, it'll then be on the race towards Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland.
I mean, Wednesday, we got to pick it up from there, because more severe weather is going to be possible for the middle of the week, toward the end of the week even. Thursday, there's another area in the red as well. You can tell we're in severe weather season, a time to be very weather aware, know where you are, what county you're in. That's how they'll issue those severe warnings, and even a tornado threat for the southeastern Great Lakes region all the way through the Ohio Valley. It is possible we see damaging winds and large hail, but the tornado parameters are a little bit higher for us in places like Detroit, Toledo, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Torcon 3. Remember, the higher the threat, the higher the number, the higher the threat for tornadoes. 2 all the way down towards Indianapolis and Evansville, Indiana. So let's kind of start things off on our Wednesday morning commute. You see the showers and thunderstorms already erupting across the middle of Kentucky, over the Ohio River, into Columbus, into Pittsburgh as well. By the way, there could be additional flooding with some of these storms, as we've already seen an awful lot of rain.
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
Moving through Michigan as we head towards 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, moving into Detroit by about 4 o'clock as the kids are getting done with school. Cleveland, it's going to be more like an evening time frame for you. Any one of these storms could knock out your power. Make sure the phones are charged up.
Well, we do have severe weather that we've been dealing with all morning long. A couple tornado watches. This one to the south until 9 a.m. There's one to the north until 8 a.m. And this means the conditions are favorable for the development of tornadoes. And within these, we have had severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings in very tight rotations as well. This is a cell we've been following for the last hour or so in Kansas, just streaming northbound for us here, along with a lot of heavy rain. Now flash flood warning into Nebraska, but we need to focus in on our tornado warning to show you what it looks like. It's now right up to where we said it would be, in between Topeka and Lawrence, making its way over 70, crossing over 24. We'll be riding along 59 as well. And here's a look at that rotation. It is weaker, but these things can cycle through, so I don't want you to let your guard down. Notice that we do have a weaker rotation here. There's the green, there's the red. That's our couplet, as we call it. And it is a lot weaker than it was. Before, it was a lot brighter, it was a lot tighter, but there's still obviously just some overall rotation happening. These tornadoes actually can cause a tornado, the tornado can lift up, the storm can keep moving along and cycle through and put down another tornado. Or, they might consider it the same tornado depending on how long it's off the ground.
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
This because there's still very heavy blinding rain that could get you. There's a lot of lightning with this as well. So if you're traveling along 70, along 24, you might have that blinding rain and you can only see the road once the lightning strikes. In the upper left-hand corner there, you can see Topeka, Kansas, and also Kansas City cameras. We have had at times some lightning show up on some of those cameras there, so keep that in mind. This is making its way north on 59. I mean, this is a type of rain that could cause flooding. Kenwaka, you are in this tornado warning. And again, though it is not tight, these things can, put down a tornado at times. Now, if you're traveling here into Nebraska, watch out for this flash flood warning. And we could see more of these pop up. I wouldn't be surprised with the very heavy downpours with some of these storms. Thankfully, they are moving at a good clip, which is good, but they still can put down 1-2 inches in a very short amount of time. That can cause flash flooding. So St. Louis, Chicago, you have the sunshine, but this is headed in your direction. Notice the snow on the west side of this, not to mention just the large-scale winds associated with this system. And we are going to see things get worse before they get better along 64, 35, 44, 55, 70. I mean, right in the heart of the country, Jordan, it is going to be rough going, especially this afternoon when the winds all come together.
Yep, and of course, that means we're going to be looking at additional tornadoes, additional strong thunderstorms that could produce some big hail. And if we focus on that for a second, we've got a pretty solid area here 2 spots highlighted for potential hail, and the biggest hail is likely for Kirksville, for Des Moines. You've got the hash marked areas that just show
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
Potential to ultimately give you 2 inches of hail or greater in diameter, okay? So, of course, you're waking up this morning, think lime-sized to baseball-sized hail, not out of the question, as the hail parameter, the purple color, shows as that low-pressure system tracks east, that color engulfs places like Des Moines, Sioux City, maybe eventually impacting places like Chicago going into late tonight and into tomorrow. Notice the line coming all the way down to the south, but we're going to be watching that tier up on the northern section where we think it could get maybe a little bit more aggressive, because that's where the disturbance is, in fact, kind of rotating out of the Rockies and into this part of the plains. Now, again, sizes. Golf ball is just shy of that 2-inch in diameter. I was thinking lime size, egg size. Then you get up above that, baseball size, which we had last week in Texas. In fact, we had hail the size of 4 inches, which is softball size, back into Texas during last week's event. And now we go into this week, and we've got another hail threat, but this time it's going to be kind of centered over the north and central part of the plains. So I mentioned you folks in Kirksville and Des Moines, Davenport. You also have a chance to get into tornado activity today. The Torcon 3 drops all the way down into Arkansas. I want to make sure you guys stay weather aware. Just because you're not a 5 doesn't mean you're out of the threat. You still have that threat, but if you're in the 5, this is where we have a chance to see maybe some larger tornadoes, EF2 or larger. Of course, we've got that tornado warning here this morning just outside of Kansas City that's working its way in East Kansas. We're continuing to follow that as it works north of I-70. So as the energy gets closer to northern Missouri and parts of Iowa, the winds out of the surface.
A tornado warning has been issued for our area.
Meanwhile, up above at 5,000 feet elevation, you could see the winds are doing a little bit of a different flow, more of like a southerly flow. So you have that wind changing direction with height. Obviously, the speed is also causing a problem, speed shear. But as we progress throughout the day, the tornado parameter, of course, works its way into this zone, Kelly, which ultimately could give us more tornado warnings.
Yes, and speaking of tornado warnings, we have an update on a tornado warning that we're following in northeastern Kansas, where the National Weather Service has now extended that tornado warning a little bit more toward the north and east. You can see a lot of heavy rain coming in with these storms as well. That's resulted in flash flooding as well in the northeastern part of Kansas. As we zoom on in, again, just to the west of Kansas City, this is where we have the active tornado warning. It does include a section of I-70. So if you know anybody who's about to travel, either coming westbound from Lawrence or eastbound from Topeka, definitely warn them about this storm. It's been showing tight rotation on Doppler radar, but we also have confirmation from storm spotters saying that they've actually seen a tornado affecting this area right here that we've circled. So you can see the winds coming and going near the Doppler radar site. We time it out for you, moving off toward the north and east at 40 miles an hour. Seek shelter immediately.
A tornado watch is in effect. Currently in our area, 67 degrees with thunderstorms in the area. Today, windy with morning thunderstorms. High 79. Rainfall near an inch. Winds could occasionally gust over 40 miles per hour. Tonight, partly cloudy and windy. Low 57. Higher wind gusts possible. Here's our 7-day outlook.
Good morning, everybody. Man, we've been following this tornado warning and several tornado warnings this morning. Eastern Kansas, this one is getting closer to Kansas City. Now, Kansas City has had some rain this morning, but the most intense thunderstorms have been just to your west. Lawrence, it's just to your west. And now this cell that we've been watching since it was south of I-70 is working its way north of the I-70 corridor. So the rotation is starting to kind of get less tight from what it was, but you still have something there that says says, hey, we still have something going on in terms of rotating clouds and a rotating storm that's now heading towards Perry. That's working its way towards Oskaloosa, maybe eventually to Dunavant. And we've got your timelines of when it can be into your backyards on the left side of the screen. We've already had a report from a storm chaser of a tornado on the ground when it was, I think in Richmond is the town it was called, there, or Richland, thank you. This is when it was south of I-70. There's the storm chaser report as it passed through that little town. And of course now it's north of that I-70 corridor. So I would say that let's just think that this thing is still on the ground as it's approaching, you know, Highway 59, that State Route 59, which runs north to south here out of Lecompton, and would be ultimately potentially working its way towards Oskaloosa. So it's just south of the warning now, it looks like. You can kind of see it there as it approaches Perry. Perry, get in your safe place as soon as possible. 6:51 is when it's going to be over you. Currently looking at 7:49 time Eastern time, so 6:49 your local time, which means it is right on the cusp of being into your potential neighborhoods. Now, that'll continue to work its way northeast. This cell has been tracking at about 30 to 35 miles per hour. Could it arrive all the way up into, let's say, St. Joseph? I hope not, but that's the trend and the direction it's going. We will keep an eye on it as long as it's still warned on. Kelly?
Yeah, we'll continue to follow the tornado warnings, flood warnings possible as well, especially with that system moving through the Midwest. But even here in the South, it has been soggy so far this month of April. Look at the bullseye in the pink over eastern Texas, indicating over a foot of rainfall. Places like New Orleans, compared to last year when we had that terrible drought. Now, since the start of January, we have a surplus of over 11 inches. And we've also seen a lot of rain over here in northern Florida, especially in Tallahassee, where we had that flash flood emergency last week. So according to the models, we are likely to see a lot of rain in Texas. It looks like the European model in the dark green, anywhere from 2 to 3, but there are a lot of areas in yellow in the Lone Star State where we could see as much as 3 to 5 inches. This is the forecast time between, say, Thursday and Monday morning. So we're going into the latter part of the week. And the American model also says, yeah, we could see quite a bit of rain in Texas. Plenty of moisture flowing in. This is going to be more like Thursday into Friday. There will be that chance of severe weather from the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Illinois, all the way down into the Arklatex, Dallas, Austin. You're in that marginal threat for severe weather as well. So one ingredient we need is the moisture that will remain in place even after the storms we're getting over the next couple of days. We still have a frontal boundary toward the weekend time frame, and then moving to right along the Carolina coast down towards Tybee Island, Savannah, where we could see some stormy weather for the second half of the weekend. So let's start things up on Thursday. There are your showers developing around Shreveport, Little Rock as well, into Nashville by your Friday morning commute. And then we kind of rebuild the action back toward the Red River Valley between Oklahoma and Texas. Your 6 a.m. Saturday. I know you want to get outside, do some gardening, do some chores, but there will be some wet weather and even some stormy weather to contend with. And then as we head towards second half of the weekend, it's all about Atlanta up towards Charlotte, and then finally going to the coast, maybe not quite off the coast, as we head towards Monday, Steph.
That's right. And guess what? We are going to see much cooler air this weekend. I want you to focus in on places like San Angelo, because we go from the 90s to the 60s, the 70s, getting all the way up in Des Moines. Chicago, we should be in the upper 50s. We're going to be in the mid 70s. Notice that we see tomorrow that heat expand. It gets even hotter into Texas, the 80s and the 90s for us. And it doesn't take a lot in order for your car to heat up. So you don't want to leave pets. You don't want to leave kids. You don't want to leave grandparents. You don't even want to leave a healthy person in there. I was talking to a friend the other day, totally healthy, fine, person, and she turned the car off and said, wow, it got really hot really fast. I'm like, yes, it doesn't take long. And 85 degrees, which you wouldn't even consider hot, in 10 minutes, 104. That's significant. By the way, 67 after 30 minutes, 101 degrees. The jet streams to the north, that allows the warm air to come north as well, but it's going to flatten out, and that will kind of even out really just the northern tier feeling the cool and the southern tier feeling the warmth for us. Watch the change though. Tomorrow, Nearly 200 million above average. As we head into Friday, though, this number is going to start dropping. This number is going to start going up. And a huge chunk of the country as we head into our Sunday, 166 million will be below average. So we are going to see this cooler air on Thursday, Jordan, start to move south, start to move east. Look at San Angelo. We go from the 90s to the 60s. But before we get to that, all this heat is actually kicking off the severe weather, Jordan, or helping it, I should say.
Yeah, let's keep with that tornado warning that we're tracking here this morning. And again, this is just west of Kansas City. We've been looking at storms working their way across I-70, just west of Lawrenceville. This has still got plenty of rain and lightning associated with it. The good news is the storm is losing its rotation umph. Now, there is still something there, but just know that it is starting to fizzle, which is good. We'll have more on this when we come back.
Waking up this morning with more than 25 million people at risk for severe weather. We've already seen severe storms overnight, and it's carrying into your morning commute as well. Unfortunately, it is going to be a messy day across the plains into the Midwest. We've got a Torcon sitting at 5. But we also have the threat for large, damaging hail, especially when we see the darker purple. We are timing out these dangerous storms just ahead. This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Kelly Cass alongside meteorologist Jordan Steele and Stephanie Abrams. The Weather Channel also bringing you coverage of the severe weather threat. Meteorologist Paul Goodlow will be live from Des Moines, Iowa later this morning. But Steph, already this morning, since I think the start of our show, we've had several severe warnings, even a few tornado warnings.
And also flash flood warnings. That tornado warning we've been following in Kansas, Kelly, for the last hour has now expired. The rotation has weakened enough that it does not need a tornado warning on it. In fact, we don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings at the minute, with the exception of now a flash flood warning that we've been watching. And we anticipate things to get worse as we go through the day. The reason being is jet energy is going to come in, low-level jet energy is going to pop off, and it's all going to come together around Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, and that's where we could have the severe thunderstorms. So here's the cell that we have been following. It's down north of 24. There's still a lot of lightning, still a lot of rain associated with it, but at least it does not have a severe tag on it. But that doesn't mean you couldn't get strong winds. That doesn't mean that you couldn't get perhaps a little bit of hail out of this. And that's not the only cell that we've been watching. There's been multiple others. Here is a storm chaser actually reported a tornado as it passed through Richland. And we did see a little dropout on the correlation coefficient. So I'm hoping that we don't have significant damage there. Of course, we will continue to get any information that we have and pass it along to you as soon as possible. There's where we do have our flash flood warning coming Thurston and Wayne counties, just to the northeast there of Norfolk, Nebraska. I always have to make sure I say that correctly. We have our resident Nebraskan, who is our executive producer, Kendall Thompson here, and she's from there. She always keeps us straight on Norfolk in Nebraska, opposed to what you have in Virginia. All right, back to the maps. You can see that surface low rotating around. This is your typical spring system. Warm, humid, buoyant air on the east side, and on the west side, we actually have a little bit of snow into Colorado. We do have hail parameters. You can see most favorable here into portions of Nebraska, also into Kansas. We do have some favorable spots for hail, and we could see hail